Hey everyone, how is everyone? Just write good evening in the chat if you can see me, and if you are from India, that is why it's good evening for you. Hey everyone, if you can see me and if you can hear me, please write good evening or something in the chat so that I can know whether I am audible and if you can see me. Yeah, if you have to listen to songs in the background, please. Yeah, so if you are able to hear the songs in the background, please. I'm so sorry. It's a marriage going on nearby, so that's why it is it. Yeah, so let me know if you guys can hear a feeble songs in the background. Yeah, cool. So we are going to start. Yeah, cool. That's good. Yeah. So it's a Bharat, if you guys know. So there are a lot of horns and there are a lot of DJs and all. So yeah, it's cool that you guys cannot hear it. That's good. So the noise cancellation earphones are working good. So yeah, so I think we are going to start today. So just let me know when you can see my screen. Just write yes in the chat if my screen is visible. Right. So yes, we are going to continue. So we are going to start today, and I can see that there are 99 attendees right now. Okay, so there are 100 people. Yeah, so am I audible to everyone? Someone said that I am not audible. Am I audible to everyone? Just write yes or no. Yes, I'm audible. I'm audible. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ankit. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. So thank you, Sandeep. Thank you, everyone. So yeah. So we are going to understand today. We are going to answer two questions. Okay. One question that we are going to answer is that why should we learn technology as a product manager? Okay, because there are so many things that you need to do as a product manager. So why put your focus in order to understand technology? Okay, why to increase your pain or why to increase your learning curve? So first of all, we are going to understand what is the significance of understanding technology. I'm going to give you so many examples where the understanding of technology have helped people create better products. So I'm going to tell you that from a product manager's angle. And second, then I'm going to tell you, like, we are just going to start the session, as in we are going to talk about, we are just going to start the curriculum also, where we are going to talk about how the internet works. And maybe if we get time, if we don't get enough questions, then if we are able to do it today, we are also going to cover what is front end and back end and how these things are different from each other. So yeah, we are going to start with thing number one, which is why do product managers need to understand technology? So as I've told, we are going to answer two questions. First is why to learn technology as a product manager, and second is how the internet works. So the first thing that we are going to answer, so this is going to be a very intensive slide. Most of the time I do not put so much content on one slide, but this is one question and everything is structured here, so I wanted to put together into one slide only. So this is why you need to understand technology. Although in the first session itself we have talked about why technology is important, and I have given you very like, yeah, so I have given you so many examples, and also like the on Saturday when we talked about, I've given you some reasons, but it was not structured. So today I'm going to give you a very structured answer so that you can get whether it is, so that you can decide for yourself whether you want to go ahead and whether you want to understand technology as a product manager or not. So yes, I have a question that from Akshay, that are we going to get slide? Yes, Akshay, you are going to get slides as well as you are going to get recordings. We are in place of creating like a blog or something where we are going to go ahead and put all of these slides and also the content out there and also the videos which are being recorded along with the reads and all. So yeah. So now we are going to go ahead and understand why PMs need to understand technology. The first thing, why the first reason why PM should absolutely understand technology is it will help you understand how your product works and how your ecosystem works. Okay, to put it in an example format, as in if you are a product manager for any kind of company, any kind of industry, if you have a good understanding of technology, then definitely you'll know your product even better, and you can maybe go ahead and improve your user experience, because whatever a product manager does, it should be related to improving the user experience and also the business sense for the company. So product manager is working for two things. One is he has to make sure, she has to make sure that the product which the company is offering is solving some or the other problem for the user. It solves it in a scalable way, in a better way, in a good experience way for the user. And second, it should make some kind of business sense, as in the company should be able to grab a large part of market because of that feature, or of the product, or maybe the company should be able to create some kind of revenue or some kind of growth from that kind of product or that kind of feature. So that is the aim that product manager wants to have. And now we are going to understand, like with some specific example, as in how understanding of technology can help you improve your product, or maybe understand how the ecosystem works. So consider that you are working in a fintech firm known as Zerodha. So I hope everyone would know about Zerodha. Just tell me no if you do not know about Zerodha, or maybe you can search about Zerodha on the internet. Yeah, so Zerodha is a platform where you can go ahead and you can purchase. So it's like a big fintech company. What it does is you can use their app and their website in order to transact equities, as in you can purchase shares of various kind of companies, and you can also invest in mutual funds. Okay, so if you are a product manager who is responsible for a fintech company like Zerodha, then you would understand that their product requires working with different kind of mutual fund companies. So Zerodha does not offer their own mutual funds. They are offering mutual funds from different kind of houses, such as Aditya Birla, such as ICICI if you are in India, and other kind of player if you are in the West. So as a fintech product manager who is working at Zerodha, you should know how these things are integrating with each other. So here in case we are talking about mutual fund companies, or we are talking about share or different kind of companies. So if you want to excel in Zerodha as a product manager, you have to make sure that you know what is the basics of your product and how the different kind of mutual companies are connecting. It should be done through APIs, through webhooks, and different kind of technologies that all of these players are using. So I hope it is clear why, if you are working at Zerodha, how technical understanding is going to help you. Just write on a scale of 1 to 5 how well you have understood why it is important for product managers at Zerodha to understand technology. Cool. So I'm going to give you another example. So maybe understand that you are a product manager at an education and tech company, maybe Udemy. Okay, so now you are creating the product, and your product is such that you are going to get pre-recorded videos from people, and you are going to show it to a bigger audience, maybe audience of million, if not billions. Okay, so now in this case, in order to improve that experience, you should know, for the user, you should know how video content hosting works. What is a CDN? What is a content delivery network? How do you make sure that videos are loading very quickly? How do you make sure that you are able to find out what percentage of the video has been seen by people, or what percentage of video has the largest drop off rates, as in people are looking at, like if there's a 5-minute video, people are looking at 3 minutes, but they're dropping off from there. So these are all the LTIs. If you want to improve your product, you need to understand all of this. So that is why, if you are an edtech, if you are working at an edtech company such as Udemy, then understanding how video content hosting works is going to be very critical for you, because that is the key, that is the foundation, as in how you are going to improve your product. So don't just leave it to your engineering manager or your CTO or your developers to understand technology. It is also your responsibility, so that you can go ahead and put your thoughts forward and maybe improve the product. Third is, if you're working for a food tech company such as Swiggy, then you should know as a product manager at Swiggy that how real-time location works. Okay, so people who are outside India, I understand that you might not be aware about some of the examples that I'm using. Yeah, right. So I understand that some of the people who are from India might not be able to understand these examples. So that's why I'm explaining what the company does. So I'm sure, but this, like some other alternative of this service might be in your country as well. So Swiggy is a food tech company where you can go ahead and deliver food from any kind of nearby restaurant, and they will make sure that they are ordering it to you. And in order to these kind of services to work, you should know how real-time location sharing works, as in how the GPS system works, how it is going to find out how much time it is going to take to deliver your order, and it is also going to find out what's a restaurant to show to you in terms of relevancy and in terms of proximity. So if you're a product manager at Swiggy, you should absolutely know how these kind of things work if you're working on that particular feature. So if you have this kind of understanding, it is definitely going to help you out. Then if you talk about travel tech, if you talk about GoIbibo or any kind of player out there, so there are so many companies such as booking.com and so many companies that are international and national, which are working on flight bookings. Okay, we are going to take example of flight booking. So there are different kind of companies such as Air India, such as Lufthansa, such as these kind of companies who have given their APIs to companies such as aggregators, which are kayak.com, which is GoIbibo, which is booking.com. And now it is the responsibility of these companies to take this data and then show it on their website to make sure that people are able to select the best offers. In order to create this kind of system, in order to improve this kind of system for the user, you have to make sure that you understand how this system works, because without understanding, you're not going to be able to improve. And most of the time when people think from first principles, which is like thinking from the basic concept, they are even able to improve the customer experiences many folds. So now guys, I have given you 4 examples. Let me know on a scale of 1 to 5 if you have understood how the understanding of technology can help you improve your products, and why it is critical to have understanding of technology in order to improve your products or become an effective product manager. Yeah, if anyone has any question, please raise your hand or write something. I will maybe unmute you and maybe ask. Yeah, so this is a good question. Manju has a question that how well do we need to understand? Okay, so guys, understand that you do not need to know how you are going to code or how you are going to create a specific solutions, but you should understand what are the basic parts of particular kind of technology. So for example, if you are working with Zerodha, okay, and then you should know what are the APIs that are possible and what are the possibilities of those kinds of APIs and kind of technology that you are using. You just need to understand the possibilities and what are the limitations. Okay, but someone would ask a question that there are so many technologies out there, there are so many kind of companies, how do we keep up with the market? So if you are working for any kind of company, it is your responsibility to be curious enough to know, and the best option to understand technology as a product manager working at any kind of company is to go ahead and pick the brains of your developer, understand why they have taken certain kind of decisions, how your complete framework works, how they have integrated with different kind of system, and that is the best place to understand technology as product managers if you are like enrolling at a new company and if you want to know what are the different kind of things that they are using. I hope that answers your question, Manju. If you guys have any question, please write in the chat. Then I'm going to go ahead and maybe unmuting you, or you can also write your question in the chat as well. Yeah, if you guys have no question, please write go ahead. I'll go ahead with the another part. Yeah, so Aranta has a question that will we also get insights on integration with payment gateway? No, Aranta, we are not going to get into very like details of any technology, because understand that there are so many types of companies. Even if you pick one industry, there could be hundreds of companies working on thousands of technology. So it would not be possible. The best way is to go ahead and understand what you are going and find out resources. If you have fixed down, like for example, if you want to understand what payment gateways are and how do they work, there are enough articles on Google in order to help you out with that. We are just going to understand what are the building blocks and how you can think in systems, so that no matter what kind of company you are working for, you would know your path ahead. Yeah, Narayana has a question that what is an API? Yes, we are going to understand what's an API. API stands for application programming interface. And just a small introduction, there are different kind of systems working. And when these systems want to talk with each other, they are using API. So for example, there is one provider known as Razorpay for payment gateway. And or I'll pick an even better example, that whenever you book Uber, Uber is going to show you a map which is taken from Google Maps. Okay, so Uber and Google Maps, they are interacting with each other through an API. API lets one system talk to another system through a self-settled mechanism, as in they have decided something that this is the language that they are going to talk to in. So when two systems talk to each other, they have to talk with some kind of API, which is known as application programming interface. Yeah, Vibhu has a question that can you explain this in the context of company like Cred? Yes, definitely I can explain. So for example, whenever you go ahead and sign up on Cred, first of all, you have to go ahead and as a product manager, you should understand that Cred, the basic underlying principle that on which Cred works is that you should be credit worthy, that your credit score should be greater than 750. Okay, but Cred does not own that data. Cred does not know what your credit score is, which means that you have to work with APIs of CRIF and Experience and other kind of credit providers. So as a product manager, you should know how these APIs work, how you can get data, what kind of data can you get, and what is the correct mechanism, and how you should make sure that the user experience is good. So in any kind of app that you can pick, I can tell you how the technical understanding is going to be helpful for you. Yes, Bibu, I hope this answered your question. Yeah, Guru has a question that do APIs have to be same programming language? No, API have a principle that for all the public and well documented APIs, it is a principle that your API should be accessible to any kind of technology without the need of following any kind of particular programming paradigm or any kind of technology or any kind of programming language. Yeah. Is it a PM's responsibility to decide the tech stack for a particular product or some? No, definitely not. This is the territory that PM should never enter into because you are not the one who are coding the product, who is coding the product. So please leave your technical decisions to the engineers. It is your responsibility to make sure that you understand what are the basic fundamentals of your product, how it works on, so that you can talk with partners and maybe become more efficient as a product manager when it comes to taking certain kind of decisions. And also you can go ahead and help them with certain kind of trade-offs. So for example, there are two kind of technology through which you can create a mobile app. One is you can use a hybrid technology, as in you can create the app in very easy to understand technologies, which is JavaScript and also HTML and CSS. While the other way is to use native technology such as Java and Objective C and other kind of languages. Okay, so as a product manager, you can help them understand as in what is the priority right now. If time is the priority, money is the priority, or time or any kind of other thing is a priority. You can help engineer with the decision, but you cannot take decision for them. During product demo, does PM needs to explain the tech in terms at the system interaction level? Shubham, no. It depends on the kind of product that you are working on. If you are a technology PM, then definitely you have to go ahead and explain everyone how it works if they are requiring that kind of information. But most of the cases, you are not required to do so. Yeah, how to go about a product which is revolving around an ecosystem which is pretty new in the market. Yeah, I think that's a tricky question. I think if it's a new market, then you should first work on the product and whether there's a demand or not, and maybe later come on technology. And in technology, you should always rely on your engineer. They are experts than you. You can just help them take certain kind of decisions, and you are going to understand technology so that you understand your product and how the ecosystem works. Yes, cool. So guys, let me know. Yeah. So I think that's a good question that that Nasser has posted. So guys, let me know in the chat. Okay, type yes if you want us to have the last 15 minutes dedicated for questions, or type no if you want. Okay, so many yes, I cannot count them, but this is no. Okay. Just I think this should have been a poll which I should have created, but yeah, I think I understood. So what I'll do, there are certain kind of things. I think there are certain kind of things. If I don't explain it right now, then the coming session is going to be very much difficult for other people who do not understand. So I'll decide on what question I want to take, and if I do not take these kind of questions, please make sure that you are asking these questions at the end. So yeah, we are going to continue. So now the second part is how understanding of technology is going to help you out. Is you can, if you have good understanding of technology, you can empathize with engineers. Okay, empathize with engineers, as in you will understand what an engineer goes through when you can understand what an engineer goes through when he is making his decisions or he's developing a product. Okay, so for example, you should know when you should test a product, when the internal people should test a product, when should the product be launched. And if you want your engineer to go ahead, so for example, most of the developers complain that the product manager has gone ahead and said that why don't you increase the size of this button, and why don't you change the color of the button from yellow to red maybe. Okay, because product manager, it's a very small change, but engineers understand that they have to code that thing. That thing could also break other kind of things which is in the UI, and that particular thing can also go ahead, the developer has to take it to staging, it has to take it to integration, then has to take it to development or maybe deployment server, and that is how it happens. So if as a product manager you want to empathize with engineers, then a good understanding of technology is going to help you. First of all, you would know how the development cycle works so that you can empathize with engineers, you know what they are saying, and you can understand their problems as well. Which brings us to the second point, which is what problems engineers face. As in, there is a problem with scalability, there is a problem of availability, which we are going to understand in the system design part. But these are the problems that you should also be aware about so that you can empathize well with the engineers. Because if there is a good combination, good collaboration skills between, or a good chemistry between the engineer and the product manager, good products are going to get created. Then what it takes to convert an idea into a feature. So if you are aware about the whole cycle, you can be better at estimating timelines and creating predictability. So predictability with the tech team is one of the very absolutely required skills, or a skill which absolutely differentiates between rockstar PMs and PM who are just good enough. Okay, so if you can create predictability, and by predictability I mean that you can estimate the timeline of your products very predictably. If you can predictably say that yes, this is what it is going to take, this is what we are going to launch, it is going to create a very good kind of cadence within your company, and that is one kind of skill that best product managers really are very good at. So these were the 4 points why we need to understand the how empathizing with engineers is going to help you if you have any kind of technical understanding. And in this program we are going to understand how Git works. Git is a important deployment flow tool which is going to help you understand how which developers use in order to deploy their system, in order to manage the version. So we are going to tell you how Git works, and we are also going to tell you what is the development cycle looks like, what is the sprint, and what are the tools and techniques in order to estimate timelines and create predictability. Yeah, so now I have explained you how you can better empathize with engineers if you understand technology. Tell me on a scale of 1 to 5 if you have understood. Yes, so I am going to unmute one of you, okay, and I'm going to ask you how it works. Okay, so tell me if we have any volunteers. Yeah, so I have unmuted you, Akshay. Maybe you can go ahead and tell me how do you think empathizing with engineers is going to help you out, and how technology can help you empathize with engineers.
Yes, sure. So I think when we talk with empathizing with engineers, it means that giving them keeping realistic expectations with them, like not saying that just create this feature within 10 days and this will be too easy to do. So that builds sort of a trust between them, and they also respect the deadlines you are giving. So I think that is the number one thing. But also, secondly, you would be more able to understand how the entire product works in terms of end to end, how the entire product tech works, so as to you would be able to delegate work within different software teams and engineering teams, and so as to give everyone exact responsibilities. So I think these are the two ways where we got
Great. I think that is perfectly summarized. Thanks a lot, Akshay. Yeah, so now we are going to go ahead and we are going to talk about the third part, which is explain how the product works to 10 non-tech stakeholders. Okay, so apart from tech, you also have to empathize with, you also have to understand that your other stakeholders are also working perfectly. Okay, so your product team does not only your whole team does not only consist of designers and developers and yourself. It also contains the sales team, it also contains the marketing team, it also contains a support team and various kind of other teams. And as a good product manager, you should understand their value, and you should understand that in order to create any good experience to the user, any kind of thing you want to fulfill for the user, and if you want to create a good product experience, you have to make sure that every stakeholder is performing at their best. Okay, so if you understand technology really well, you can explain how the product works to non-tech stakeholders. So you can help sales team to understand what are the limitations of the product. So for example, if sales team is going ahead and they are selling some kind of feature, or they want to understand the limitations of the product, you can go ahead and tell them, because now you understand the technology, you know how many people it can go ahead and it can serve, and there are other kind of implication also which you can understand if you have a good understanding of technology. So you can help sales team do so many things if you help them understand technology. Okay, second is you can help marketing team understand opportunities. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. So you guys have heard of a okay, so I think that's a good point you have missed. So just guys, tell me in the chat section if you believe I am talking a bit fast, because that is my habit. I could maybe go a bit slow if you guys wanted. Write fast or slow in the comments, whatever you feel about my speed. Yes, so I can understand people who are, yeah, okay, understand. So I think I will go a bit slow. Okay, so now we are going to understand how marketing team, how a good understanding of technology can help your marketing team understand opportunities. Okay, so I believe all of you have heard of a website known as Quora or a website known as Pinterest. Okay, so you would know that whenever you search for something on Google, if it is there on Quora, then Quora result would be at least in the first result. Okay, or Pinterest result would be in the first result. If you are a if you know Stack Overflow, then you would, if you are a developer, then you would know that if you search for any kind of thing on internet or about the technology or kind of technical problem that you are solving, you are going to see that Stack Overflow is a site that ranks over there. For other people, Wikipedia is a site which ranks over there. So searching, like getting new users on the website, is the responsibility of the marketing, right? Of the marketing department. Now, when these kind of products are built, such as Quora, such as LinkedIn, such as other kind of people which have this UGC content, there the product team has given the possibility to marketing team to understand that they can now use the content that is created by users and maybe put it well on search engines, okay, which is also known as search engine optimization. So here the product team has helped the marketing team to understand what are the possibilities in terms of search engine optimization, how do they better design their pages, how do they better create their pages so that they can get a lot of free traffic. Okay, so this is how, and we are going to, so in the next cohort that we are going to arrange for the product growth and analytics 101, and this is also a part of HelloPM's main cohort, where we in depth understand like how marketing team and product team should work with each other, which is also known as product led growth. The last part is help support team understand root causes. So there are so many cases where your people are going to come, where your users are going to come and they are going to bombard your support team with different kind of requests. So in those cases, if your support team understand why a particular kind of issue is occurring, because now you have made them understand how this technology works, that is going to work wonders for them and also increase the time to turn around for them also, and also provide a better experience to your users. Okay, so now tell me guys, on a scale of 1 to 5, if you have understood how you can explain, how a good understanding of technology can help you explain how your product works to non-tech stakeholders. Yeah, so also you would have understood that a you would have listened or you would have come across this term or this sentence that product managers do not have authority over people, they should know how to influence people. Okay, so these are the techniques, as in if you help people, if you empathize with people, then that is definitely going to help you influence them, because you have helped them today, you have helped them understand the product, you will help them in their job, then you will be more inclined to influencing them. That is how the collaboration works. That is the essence of collaboration, which is reciprocation. You are going to help them today by helping them understand these kind of concepts, then they are going to maybe help them tomorrow. Now the last part, which is conceptualize new ways to improve experience. Okay, so this is not only essential for, like, this is not only possible with technical understanding. If you are very good with your skill, then you can go ahead and see the future. You can know what are the technical advances that are going to happen. And I'm going to give you some examples, as in, if you are very good at technology, if you're curious enough, if you go understand and you are putting your time in order to understand what is going to happen in technology and how different kind of technology works, then you can go ahead and foresee technical advancements. I'm going to give you some examples. Okay, so I believe all of you might have heard about Adobe. Is there anyone who can tell me what are the popular products of Adobe that you might have used? Yes. So if you guys remember, in 2011 to 2015, Adobe has this famous suite of product known as the Creative Suite, right? They have these products which we are going to download from the internet, and then we are going to use them on a desktop. But recently, like 4 or 5 years before, Adobe has taken this decision that now we are going to move from desktop apps to the internet based apps. Okay, that is why they have come up with something known as the Creative Cloud, which is now their #1 revenue making product. Okay, that was an idea that was brought forward by a product manager there, which was Leah Hickman, and she has, by herself and her team, has taken this mammoth task of converting all of their desktop application, because their products are really complicated, they required so much technology, and also she has taken this task in order to complete take all of their desktop experience and convert it into an internet, which has now become their #1 revenue channel. Yeah, they have moved to the SaaS model. Yes. Then the other example is Netflix. So if you know about the story of Netflix from 1999 to about 2005 to 2009, they were a mail rental company. As in, you are going to get their subscription, and they are going to mail you DVDs. Okay. Now, from 2009, they were able to understand that there are so many operational nuances of that particular business model. So their leading product manager, whose name was Smith Arnold, has came up with this online streaming idea, and he has led this complete structure. So it was not only about idea, he has led the implementation also. And what Netflix has brought today in online streaming is some or the other, like the seed roots of a guy known as Kate Arnold, who was the product manager over there. So this is how this good understanding of technology has helped him. The last part is Google AdWords. So you would know that in 2004, and even now in some of the companies, how sales works is that if you want to sell advertisement to any kind of player, you are going to call their CEO, or you are going to make interpersonal relationship with them, and then you are going to sell your products, which is like a very user-centric way of selling products. But this guy known as Jake Manning, when Google was trying to monetize some of their properties, he has taken this approach that we are not going to go ahead with traditional sales approach, but we are going to create a system which is Google AdWords, which is going to make sure that user experience is not spoiled, and also the advertisers are getting best for their bid, and that is how they have gone ahead and created Google AdWords. This was also an idea from product manager, who has not only given the idea, but also has taken it from 0 to 1 and executed like one of the largest revenue making products of the world. And Google AdWords contributes to almost 80-85% of Google's revenue, which is around 150. Yeah, which is at $150 billion right now. Yeah, guys, now I have explained you why PMs need to understand technologies. Tell me on a scale of 1 to 5 if you have understood why you should need to understand technologies to be a better PM. Yeah. So, okay. So is there a lot of noise coming from the background? Please write yes or no in the chat. Yes. Good. So now we are going to go ahead. Okay, so yeah, so one question I want to make it clear before we could go ahead. Okay, so a lot of people in the question also, they are asking, and personal messages also, they are asking that what are the resources we can learn in order to understand technology and all. Okay, although we are going to cover basic in this course, but if you want to maybe get a good, if you want to get a good kind of understanding, there is a course which is known as CS50. Okay, which is like a really good course taught by a really popular professor by the name David Malin. So you can go ahead, search for CS50 on YouTube. You are going to find maybe 10 to 15 videos. Each video is around 1 hour or 2 hour long. You can invest your time over there. Then I can assure you that that is going to be the best investment that you can make of your time when it comes to understanding technology, and that is going to help you no matter if you become a product manager or not. That information is definitely going to help you, because they have explained good things in really good format in a very interactive way. Yeah, it's Harvard CS50, right. And you can go ahead and search it on YouTube. You don't have to go with Coursera to find it out. And they create one cohort they are going to create one program every year. So you can right now go and check for their 2021. It's like really good. They include all the latest technologies out there. But that is from a technical angle if you want to become an engineer. Yeah, so the name of the course is CS50, Computer Science 50. You can just type CS50 on YouTube. Yes, so the name of the course is CS50 on YouTube. Whatever content that we are creating, we are going to make sure that it is getting included in the blog, and we are going to send you the link over email and the WhatsApp group. So don't be afraid of this. Yes, thank you, Manju, for posting that. Now we are going to go deep. So yeah, so I hope you guys are convinced that you should know technology as a PM. No matter if you just want to just be barely effective or you want to be a great PM, having a good understanding of technology is very much appreciated if you want to become a PM. That is first thing. Now the second thing is, how much technology should I know? Okay, so you do not need to know the bare basics of technology, as in you do not need to go into deep of technology. If you can just understand how the systems work, and if a time came that you have to go into deep, you can always find resources on the internet. So right now you just have to focus on basics. And in terms of basics, I mean, if you go through this program, if you also have like some time of spare time, if you can go to CS50 course, I think that should be enough for you to become a better product manager. Apart from this, your curiosity should drive you, as in you are going to understand so many things if you are curious enough, because there is all the resources are available for free on the internet. Yeah, so now we are going to go ahead in the program, and now we are going to start our first topic, which is how internet based products work. Okay, so can someone tell me in the chat why it is important to understand how internet based product works if you are a product manager? Why it is relevant for you to understand how internet works if you are a product manager? Everyone, please understand, we want to make it interactive because this is a cohort based course. This is not like some sort of webinar or not where I am only talking and you are not interacting. So make sure that you guys are also interacting. Yeah, and also we are experimenting that whether at this kind of scale a cohort based program can work or not. So we are making sure that we are answering the question, and we are also interacting with you. Make sure that you are also interacting. Yes, right. So most of the things that are there, most of the products that you are going to work on, they are somewhere directly or indirectly connected to the internet. So if you understand how internet is going to work, you are going to understand how these products are going to work. That is the first thing. The second thing is there are so many systems like internet. Okay, if you understand how a complicated system like internet works, maybe you will develop an understanding to understand how other kind of systems work. Okay, so for example, we are going to understand today that how what is a client, what is a DNS, what is a server. You can take that similar kind of information in another kind of field. So for example, you want to understand how an API works. You can use similar kind of understanding, similar kind of keyword in order to understand that. So here we are, the structure of the program is such, we are going to help you understand the system, and then you can increase your knowledge based on those kind of first principles. Yeah, so now we are going to understand what is internet and how it works. So internet is nothing but an interconnected network of devices. These devices could be anything. It could be a router, it could be a computer, it could be a tab, it could be a TV, it could be a laptop, it could be anything. So anything that is connected to that particular network known as internet is a node of the internet. Okay, so internet is nothing but a collection of devices which are interconnected to each other and which can communicate to each other. Okay, the device through which you consume the internet, you consume the resources. It could be a video, it could be a website, it could be any kind of app. The device through which you, or the form through which you consume it, is known as a client. So the Chrome browser that you are using in your mobile is a client. The mobile app that you are using is a client. The Zoom app that you are using on your laptop right now or your mobile right now is the client. Okay, so that is the client. Now this client, so for example, if you are going to go ahead and type any kind of URL into your browser. So for example, you have typed facebook.com or you have typed linkedin.com. Okay, now this request is, since all the computers are connected, then this client is going to, if you have gone on google.com, if you have gone on Chrome and then you have typed linkedin.com and you have typed linkedin.com/in/Ankit Shukla, which is my profile. Now this URL is going to go to another set of system which is known as a DNS, which is domain name service. Okay, here the DNS is going to make sure that it is going to find where does this request needs to go. So for example, every computer does not know what to do of linkedin.com. Only the computer that is owned by LinkedIn or that is rented by LinkedIn, which is known as a server, knows how to serve this kind of request. Okay, so a client is going to ask for linkedin.com. The DNS is going to make sure that it is pointing it to the right address. Okay, the right computer which holds that information which this person is asking. Okay, so this is the responsibility of a DNS. So think of DNS as an address book. So you cannot remember each and everyone's phone in your phone book. So that's why you use a phone book. Okay, and like you cannot remember each and everyone's phone number in your memory. So you go ahead and you go ahead and save their number. So for example, you have written my number Ankit and you have gone ahead and written down my number alongside my name, so that if you want to dial my number, you are going to type Ankit in your phone book, you are going to search Ankit, and you are going to find what my number is. You don't have to remember the number, you just have to remember my name, which is very easy. So what a client does is, it is going to articulate, it is going to convert that linkedin.com into something known as an IP address. Okay, so an IP address is kind of an address which can be understood by computer, and which could be used to address any kind of device on the internet. Okay, so understand that as every one of us has a unique address, every device which is connected to the internet, whether it is a mobile device or any kind of thing that is like interacting through the internet, has some kind of IP. So that IP is able to address any kind of device. It is able to understand where this device is and what this device is. Okay, so the DNS responsibility is to make sure that it can, so the name of the service is domain name service, which makes sure that your domain name, which is a reader friendly name, which is a user friendly name, such as linkedin.com, google.com, anything, could be transformed into an IP, and that IP is going to make sure that it is able to find the particular kind of computer where the data needs to be accessed. Okay, so as a client, you are going to use your mobile, you are going to open Chrome, you are going to type in linkedin.com, then it is going to go to the DNS, which is going to find the IP, and from that IP it is going to find the computer where this data is present, which is going to serve your request for linkedin.com. On that server there would be different kind of code which is going to help you understand, which is going to help you serve the data which you want. That is known as the server. Yeah, so tell me guys, on a scale of 1 to 5, if you have understood this. Yes, so yeah, you guys are pretty easy to please. I do not see that. I could see that most of the people have said that it is fine, but I have not explained everything. Still you guys think it is fine, I think it is not good. So please guys, be honest. If you are not understanding something, please go ahead and tell me. Okay, that is why I have put this scale, and I'm not asking yes or no. Just please be honest in your feedback. It is only going to help us. Okay, so as a product manager, always understand that critical feedback is much more important, much more valuable than good honest feedback. Then good feedback, not honest, but honest feedback is definitely a critical feedback. So make sure that you are not shying away from passing out your critical feedback. That is only going to help you and also other people who are going to join these kind of cohorts. So you are doing some kind of social good to yourself and also other people who are going to come in this cohort if you are passing the critical feedback, right? Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. I'm attaching my pen tab. Just give me a minute. Yeah. In the meanwhile, if you guys have any question, please feel free to write in Q&A section that is present in the webinar screen so that we can take it later. I'm going to take 2 or 3 minutes in order to set this up. Yeah, so everyone please write yes in the chat if you can see my screen where I am writing. I have written yes over there. Yes, cool, cool, cool. So cool. So I'm going to help you understand how the internet works. Okay, so there are three things in the internet. One is the client, which is you. Second is the DNS, whose major responsibility is to just make sure that you can convert that domain name address into an addressable IP address. Okay, because IP address is essential to locate any kind of device on the internet. And second is the server. Okay, what could be a client? A client could be a mobile app, a mobile device, it could be a desktop, or it could be anything that is connected to the internet. It could be server, it could be anything. Okay, so in some ways server could also be client, but that is a bit, that could be a bit meta for you, so I'm not going to get into this. So mobile and desktop, these are the client that you can use, and in this desktop you can use your browser such as Chrome in order to get any kind of things, or maybe another kind of browser, or you can use any kind of app. So these are known as client because you are the someone who is requesting the information. You are the client, you are getting served. This is the client. Any kind of mobile app that you see, any kind of browser that you see, any kind of things that you can see and experience is known as a client, because that is how you are experiencing it. Okay, this is the client. Second is the client is going to make a request. Okay, so the client is going to go ahead, and if you want to browse the internet, for example, you want to browse LinkedIn, then you are going to type LinkedIn on your client. You are going to type LinkedIn on your Chrome, and this request is going to go to the DNS. Okay, now the DNS is nothing but a directory. Okay, now the directory is, there is the name written, what is the domain name, and now their IP address is written. Okay, so for google.com, they might have some IP 1.2.3.4 something. There is a pattern that IP address has, you can read it about on the internet. And then for LinkedIn, they might have something. For LinkedIn, for example, their address is 1.2.3.4. Now it is the address for the server which can cater to this particular request. Okay, which has the LinkedIn, which is owned by or rented by LinkedIn. So it is going to find where it is. So since every server could be addressed by an IP, this IP is going to find that server. Maybe it could be a computer or maybe a server somewhere. Server is also a computer, by the way. So they are going to go ahead, go to this server. So now this server has the ability to understand the request. Okay, so the client has made the request to DNS. The DNS has found out who the correct IP is. He has forwarded that request to the server. Now the server should be able to understand the request. Okay, now the request has been served. The request has been, the request has been received. Now it is the responsibility of the server. Here is where the majority of the codes reside, that it is going. So this is the place where all the databases, all your algorithms are going to rest. This is going to decide what I need to do with this kind of request. Let me give you an example. So if you have gone ahead and typed linkedin.com, okay, so it has gone to it has bypassed the DNS, it has gone to the server, and now on the server it has understood that you are asking for this domain, this particular page, and on linkedin.com this page is the home page, right? So now the server should be able to understand the request and create the response. What is the response? The response is the web page. Okay, so how it is going to do is that this server is nothing but a device that hosts a lot of code, a lot of logic, okay, which is also known as business logic. So the business logic is nothing but a set of instructions that a computer has to follow or a program has to follow in order to understand what I need to do with this particular command. Okay, so now he has gone ahead and received a request that I want linkedin.com's homepage. So now the server is going to do following things. First of all, the server is going to understand what is the URL. What is the URL? URL is the address that you have typed in the browser. So it is linkedin.com. Okay, now it has understood, yes, I should be able to cater to this address because now I have this data. Now it is going to understand. So if you visit LinkedIn from India versus from the US, you are going to find different kind of pages because they have optimized this for different kind of geography. So now from the request, it is also going to find what could be the address of that person. Address as in what is the geolocation of that person. Okay, how it is going to find it? Because with this request, linkedin.com, it might have also sent what is the IP of the client. As I have told you, everything which is connected on the internet, whether it is client, whether it is server, whether it is any kind of device, it is going to have an IP. So from that IP, which is by the client, it is going to find where this user is coming from. If this user is coming from maybe US, then it is going to show a different page. If it is going to come from India, it is maybe going to show a different page as a home page. Okay, that is first thing. Now what happens? It also needs to understand whether this guy is logged in or not. How it is going to find it? With the request, the browser or the client also, yeah. So with the request, the browser will also send whether this person is logged in or not through some kind of information known as a cookie. Okay, so now this is going to forget about what a cookie is right now. Just remember that term. I'm going to explain it to you in more detail in the later session. So it is going to send some more information. It has sent this. Along with this information, it is also sent what is if this user is logged in or not. Okay, and if this user is logged in, how do I locate this user? How do I identify this user? Through some kind of user ID. Okay, so now it is linkedin.com. You have gone to the server. The server is understood. Server has the following data. Okay, server has the link that you are trying to access. Server has your IP address, and it also has some kind of additional data. What is the additional data? What is the additional data? The additional data is the user ID maybe, or it also knows whether the client is logged in or not. Okay, so now if you are logged out, they are going to give you a simple HTML page. So if you guys can go on LinkedIn in an incognito mode right now, you are going to see, if you type linkedin.com in incognito mode, or if you logged out, you are going to find a static homepage over there. Okay, so if it thinks that the user has logged out, it is going to just show you an HTML page. We are going to understand what HTML page is later, but just understand it for now. But if it understands that you are someone who is logged in, then it will take your user ID. It is going to understand from its database or it's from logic that who are the people that you are following or people who are following you. It is going to take all of their data, the posts that they have created in the past, the pages that you follow. It is going to combine all of it and going to create something known as an HTML document and send it back to you. Okay, this is how it is going to be done. So we have client who sends a request. Request goes through the DNS, which is just a phone book or an address book, to the server. The server should receive, the server should understand the request, and also the server should go ahead and the server should go ahead and understand what is the, how should I create the response. Okay, so there are three responsibilities of the server. First is it should understand it should be able to receive the request. And in order to receive the request, it should have some kind of software, which we are going to understand in detail. Then it should know how to understand the request, as in it should know what is the URL, what is the additional data, where it is coming from. And then it should be able to create a response. As in I have told you, if you are a logged in user, it is going to understand what is the data that you have, what is the user profile picture, what is the people that you have followed, and it is going to compile them and create a response, and then send that response back to the client that has asked for it, which is the IP address that the client might have given. Okay, and then the client's responsibility is, the first client's responsibility is it should know how to create a request. Then it should be able to receive a response, and then it should be able to paint or present a response. This is how, guys, the internet works. The client, the DNS and server. DNS is the very, like, it is the important part, but not very much complicated. So people have been asking me that who maintains the DNS. So DNS is a decentralized network. There are so many organizations that are developing it, who are maintaining it. This is not in control of one person. So it is not possible that one device goes away and the internet is stopped. That is because of the beauty of the DNS. It is maintained across the continents. Yeah, so yeah, tell me on a scale of 1 to 5 if you have understood how internet works. Tell me on a scale of 1 to 5 now, very honestly. DNS and ISP is different. Yes, DNS and ISP are different. ISP is someone who provides you the internet. Sometimes it might be possible that bigger ISPs, they can also play the role of DNS, but these are like different concerns. Yeah, so Sanjana, you have not understood. You have told 3. So maybe can I unmute you and ask you what you have not understood? Sanjana, I've allowed you to talk. If you can go ahead, unmute yourself and tell me what can I do to make you understand, help you understand you this better. Yeah, Sanjana, are you there? Yeah, I think we cannot listen to Sanjana. So yeah, Sanjana, maybe I'll talk to you later. Maybe if you can go ahead and tell in the chat, that is going to work. So yeah. Cool. So now guys, I'm going to tell you. Yes. So these are complicated things. Okay. So developers main developers are main concerns are the ones which you are mentioning, which is internet suddenly shuts down if I do not have like done all of these things. So there are safe fallbacks on all of these things which are beyond the course, but I'm going to maybe give you some kind of clues. So let me just take one more chance in order to explain this. I want everyone to understand this is not a course made for few people. This is for everyone. I would only be done with my task if all 147 of you understand what I'm going to explain. This is the beauty of cohort-based course. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you again. So one, we have the client. Client is your browser or your mobile app. Client should be able to create a request and should be able to send a request, right? And in order to create a request, okay, it has to find the URL and it also has to attach some kind of additional information which is required on case basis. Okay, so for example, if you are going to request HelloPM or the homepage, you are not going to require a login or something. Okay, that's a static homepage. So their user ID or login state is not required. But if you are going to access the LinkedIn homepage or Facebook homepage, there you are going to have some kind of additional information. Okay, so a client should be able to articulate and send that information to a server. Okay, then I'm skipping DNS because you know what DNS does. I'm directly coming to the server. Okay, so yeah, so this is the server. Now what the server should do? Server should be able to understand the, first of all, it should be able to, just give me a moment. Let me, yeah, the first of all, the server should be able to what? It should be able to receive a request. Okay, it should have an IP and it should be connected to the internet. It should be able to receive the request. Second is it should be able to understand the request. Okay, that is why the developer who is developing the client application, which is website or app, should know what is the language that the server understands. That is why he is going to send the request in the same format. And the last part is it should the second last part is it should know how to create a response. Okay, and this is really complicated. So most of the people who are getting paid in tech, their main responsibility is to create a response. For Facebook, it could be a home feed. For LinkedIn, it could be your home feed. For Amazon, it is a list of product that you see. Okay, so this is the main task that people do. And the last part is it should be able to send a response. And how will it be possible to send a response? Because it has the data which could be read by the client, and it also has the data which should be used to send this request, as in the IP address of the client. Now this has sent this. Now the response has been created. This was the first step, send a request, create a request. This is the second step, send a request. This is the third step, receive a request. This is the fourth step, understand the request. This is the fifth step, create a request, create a response. Then this is the sixth step, send a response. And now this is the seventh step, receive the response. Please guys, don't mind my writing. I believe you are understanding everything. Just forget about the writing for now. This is how I write. Respond, receive the response. And the last part is, which is the eighth step, is to paint a response. By painting a response, I mean it should be in a way that the client should be able to paint the response in front of the user. Okay, so if you're talking about website, it has to be in the form of, so it is a responsibility of the server to send the response in the form of an HTML document. Okay, HTML document is something that could be understood by the server, that could be understood by the client, which is the browser. Now the browser should be able to understand HTML, and that is how it is going to show it in the form of when we talk about mobile apps, it should be either an XML document or something which should be understood by the client. So server responsibility to send the format into something which could be understood by the client, and client responsibility to make sure that it understands it and it also paints it in front of the user so that user knows whatever I was requesting, it has been received or it is received in the following format. Yeah, guys who have shared 4, 3 or 2 in the past, let me know if you have understood how internet works on a scale of 1 to 5 now. Yes, cool. I hope you guys have understood. So yes. So now from this, yes, this is a good question. Others has a question that yeah, this is a good question. Others has a question that does linkedin.com and linkedin.com/ayush have separate IPs and separate mappings? No. So we have in a URL, we have different kind of things. Okay. So let me tell you. This is a good question because we were anyways going to cover it. So it's really good. So now this is a domain. And this is the request or any kind of domain. Okay. So you are just going to find this. This is going to be resolved from the DNS. Okay. Once you have find the IP and all, this other information is going to be attached as additional information and is going to be sent to the server. Okay. So whatever is the first thing, whatever comes after HTTP or HTTPS, okay, up to 1 point, it is known as a domain. Okay. Not up to 1 point, but we have something. This is a new concept I'm introducing, which is known as a TLD, which is top level domain. Okay, so we have linkedin.com/Ankit, right? So this is the domain, right? This is a top level domain. Now we have something known as subdomain, xyz.linkedin.com/Ankit. Okay, now this is known as a subdomain. For this and this, the IPs are going to be different. But for everything after this, the IPs are going to be same. So the IP for this is going to be the same as IP for this. Okay, whatever separations comes before the dot or before the first training slash is going to get a new DNS entry. I hope that answers your question, Adarsh. Yes. Okay. So guys, understand that for subdomain is different subdirectory. So what this is known as a subdirectory, whatever is after the trailing slash. But whatever is in the dots is known as a subdomain. So there's a difference between the subdomain and subdirectory. A subdirectory could be on a same server or different server, but a subdomain needs to have different DNSs. It could be on a same server, different server, but the DNS entry is going to be different. So that is why whenever you create different kind of domains, different kind of subdomains, you have to make sure that there is a system which gives them a IP address. Yes. So now we have another question, which is the flow even after entering the domain, go to linkedin.com, then link down to profile, open it? Is that no. So yes, this is also a good question, others. So DNS has something known as a DNS cache. Okay, so it is going to store that information for some particular period of time into your browser, so that you do not your computer or your client does not have to does not have to go to DNS every time, because DNS is going to increase the time it takes to get you the request. Okay, because first it go to the DNS, then it will go to the server. So the DNS is going to make sure that it records that IP, store it in the cache, and then it is for every concurrent request, for some time it is going to take request from the cache and not from the DNS. Very good question, others. I hope that answers your second question too. Yes. Correct. Yeah, Shubham, now I hope. Yeah, it's a great analogy that Kareem has put out. We are going to share some resources where you are going to understand how it happens, and there are going to be so many good analogies. A very good analogy is about the waiter and the server system, as in you are going to a restaurant and you have called the waiter. and then the waiter is going to make sure if you have put the order to the waiter, and then the waiter is going to make sure that he's going to find the right chef. He's going to give the order to him. So the chef is the server, and you are the client, and then the person in the midway is the waiter is the DNS, and also the API, which we are going to understand in a bit more detail. So we are going to go use a lot of analogies in the course as well. So that's good. Yes, please explain the subdomain explanation. I'm going to explain it to you yet again. Okay, so I hope you guys know what is a. Okay, let me take a better example. Yeah, so I hope everyone is aware about WordPress, or maybe let us take LinkedIn only, right? Okay, so on LinkedIn, what happens is that you have gone ahead and typed an address known as linkedin.com, and there is a structure of the domain. Okay, so let us see, this is a domain /x/y/z. Okay, this part is known as top level domain. Okay, this is the main domain, right? These are the subdirectories. Okay, and if you append anything after that, it becomes a subdomain. On LinkedIn, so for example, my profile on LinkedIn is linkedin.com/Ankit Shukla. Okay, so now this part is known as the main domain or top level domain, right? And this is a subdirectory. So if I'm trying to access this from a client or from a browser, it is going to tell me, it is first going to find out what linkedin.com's IP address is, and then it is going to give this whole information to the server. Okay, it is the DNS, the IP that we are going to use is for the domain only, or for a subdomain. Or what is the example of subdomain? Subdomain's example is a.b.com, or maybe india.linkedin.com. Or if you have seen WordPress, on WordPress people have different kind of subdomains, as in ankit.wordpress.com. Okay, so every IP address, every subdomain, most of the time it is going to have a different kind of IP address. Okay, and it exactly depends on your server configuration. Okay, if your server can go ahead, it can also have different IPs, it can have same IPs. And also in extreme cases, okay, not very popular, not very advisable, but in extreme cases, people can also manage to have different IPs and different domains, different IPs and different addresses for these also. So for Ankit Shukla, it could be one IP, and for other, it could be different IP. Okay, it could be possible, but for most of the cases, I would say 99.9% of the cases, people do not do this. It is only used for very, very scaled cases. Yeah, right. That's also great. That's also a great analogy. So for example, yeah. So Goku has given a very good analogy, which is of a address. Maybe I'll try to explain. So what happens is that you want to deliver a letter, right? Now the address is this. This is, maybe I have written, this is my house number. This is my street. And this is my city. Okay. Treat city as a domain. Okay. So if I want to deliver a letter in maybe a city known as Delhi in India. Okay. So Delhi.com is the domain. So whatever comes here, if the city is this Delhi.com, it is going to get served from the same server. It is going to get delivered to the same city. The things could be different. There could be different part of server which could be taken its care, while different part of the server which will be taking care for different kind of streets. So city is something. This is a good analogy. So one city is one domain. Everything that comes under the city is going to be catered from the same IP. There could be different kind of cities which are going to have different kind of IP addresses, which is going to have different kind of domains. Yes, guys. Now let me know on a scale of 1 to 5 if you have understood this well or if you have any kind of questions. Yes, 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 correct. Yeah, so right. So I have a question. Like people have, Naman has posted a question that why can't we reject cookies? Where does VPN comes in all this? What role does Google exactly play? Is it a DNS? And also, these are very good questions. These are curious questions, and that is also to answer that it is not possible in any kind of program out there to cover all of our curiosities. Okay, so maybe I can suggest you one book which is very good, which is name is Swipe to Unlock, which is going to cover basics as in how these kind of things work, and also your curiosity should drive you. No question is unanswered on Google. If I am not here able to answer them, or if I do not want to answer them to maybe justify the time investing in we have invested into this, and also to justify other people's time investment into this, just make sure that you are going ahead and Googling all of these things. Your curiosity should drive. Yeah, right. So let me check the time first. So yeah, I think we have 15 minutes. We are not going to take the session in the like question answer in the end today because we have already taken it. So now we are going to go ahead and talk about something known as a front end and back end. Right? You have understood the 8-step process that it requires to in order to get you to a particular kind of resource on the internet, any kind of website, any kind of app request or okay. Now, what is a front end and back end? Very simply, you have already understood it. Whatever happens on the client side is the responsibility of the front end, which requires sending a request and also making sure that you are able to understand that request and you are able to understand the response that has been generated, and you are also able to paint that response in front of the client, in front of the user, right? So everything that happens on the client is the front end. Everything that is happening on the server is known as the back end. Very simple definition. That is how it works. Now there are different kind of responsibilities that backend has to do. There is different kind of responsibilities that front end has to do. I've already given a glimpse of that responsibility. Okay, first responsibility is to understand and do all of these things. This is what a server needs to do. A major responsibility is to create a response. And how does one create a response? How do we explain it in a step by step way? Okay, so how to create a response? Just you can go ahead and first of all, you have to understand the request, what the client is asking from you. Is it asking for a particular kind of domain? It is asking for a particular kind of URL. It is asking for a particular kind of information from you. Okay, then you have to go ahead. First of all, you have to understand the request. Then you should have some kind of algorithm, also known as business logic, to cater to that request. Okay, if I take example of LinkedIn, when you go on linkedin.com on homepage, if you have logged in, it is going to what it will do. Let us break it in step by step format. First of all, it is going to go ahead and it is going to tell you that it is going to find out if person has login. Okay, then if you have logged in, then what is the user ID? Then you have given the user ID. Then it is going to find out and connect to its database. Okay, database is where it has registered all its information. Everything is stored, everything about the information platform is stored in that database. From that database, it is going to find who is following you or who are you following. Okay, so it is going to find your followers or people whom you are following from your user ID. They would also have some kind of user ID, right? You have a user ID. People whom you are following are also going to have some kind of user ID. Then it is going to find again in its database that who are the people, what have these people gone ahead and what they have posted very recently. Then It will also have a database or a table or a record where it will be recording all of the posts that are posted by these people. This would be images, videos, content, post, hashtag, and everything. Now, by taking all of this information from the database, it would have another kind of algorithm or a business logic which would help it tie together all the information. And this information will be tied together and converted into a form of an HTML, which is the language, which is the script, which is the paradigm, or something that the browser understands. Okay, now it is going to convert all of this information into an HTML and create something known as a response. This response is going to get sent to something known as your client, which is also the front end. Okay, so all of this has happened on the back end. What has happened? First of all, it has understood the request, which is done by the server. It has put something known as logic, or we can also name business logic in fancier terms. Even more fancier is the algorithm, which is nothing but a step-by-step instruction of what I need to do with certain kind of request. Okay, then it is going to get connected from some kind of database. Sometimes it is also possible that you do not have all the resources in order to entertain that request. So you are going to find other people who can entertain that request. So for example, if you want to send an email, then your server cannot send an email. Maybe you have to connect with Gmail, you have to connect with other kind of service in order to send an email. There we use API, you use third-party services, which will also be written in the logic. So a server is somewhere where the logic, most of the logic is written, which is to be executed on the client, which is to be executed on the server, which it has to have some kind of logic, some kind of algorithms, and it can also connect with database. It can do so many things, and it can create a request and send it to, it can create a response and send it as a response to the server. That is, yeah. So now this is what the backend does. And there are so many technologies, so many programming languages in which you can write these kind of things. Okay, so a backend developer is someone who knows how to create, how to get the server do what he wants. Okay, he or she can use Java, JavaScript, Ruby, or these kind of language that are possible. I'm going to include some kind of pre-reads which you can read in order to understand all of this. Okay, so backend technologies are something which can help you create the responses. Talking about the front end should be able to understand the request, okay, and understand the response that has been sent, and it should also be able to paint that response. Okay, and if we talk about browsers, okay, which is your Chrome, which is your Internet Edge or Internet Explorer, they only understand three things. Okay, they are either they understand HTML, which is hypertext markup language. They are going to understand CSS, which is cascading style sheets, and third, they are going to understand something known as JavaScript. Okay, so every internet page that you see, every page that you see in the browser has to be a combination of these three technologies. HTML is like a, so if you see any kind of web page, HTML is like a skeleton. Okay, CSS is something that gives it the skin, which is how it should look like, which is the color, the positioning, or something. Okay, and then we have JavaScript, which provides the functionality. So if you click on this button, this is going to happen. If you click on this button, this is going to happen. Okay, this is the responsibility of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you go ahead, okay, I can maybe show you one example. So if you can go to any kind of web page, okay, maybe if you can go to google.com, if you can go to any kind of simple web page, and if you can right click there in this particular way, if you can right click there, and if you can look at view page source, you are going to find a document which is a HTML document. Look, this is written that it is so this is an HTML document, right? All of these things should be understood by the client, which is the browser, right? This is the JavaScript which is written. I'm not sure if you guys would be able to understand, but I'm going to add some kind of basic pre-reads for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript so that you can understand. Understand that you don't have to read it right now. This course does not depend on this. Maybe you can read them whenever you get time. Okay, so what are the responsibilities of the server? Can you guys maybe go ahead and tell me? Can someone tell me what are the responsibilities of a server? You can write it in the chat. Yes, so a server has to, there are so many complicated things. Okay, so for example, if you are someone who is like maybe who is a YouTube, right? So for YouTube, you have to understand the user ID, the user who is logged in. You have to understand what he has seen in the past. You have to store all of that data into, look, whenever someone is watching a video, you have to store that information about the video and also about that user into a database, so that whenever a user is requesting for some other video or he's coming back to your website, you should be able to present him what he might like. Okay, so there are so many things, so many complicated things which you can use by doing these first principle, which is how the fundamentals work. Cool, right? I think we have done enough for today. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is, okay, so just tell me on a scale of 1 to 5 if you have understood what is the front end and what is the back end. We are going to deep dive into it, don't worry, but let me know whatever I have explained if you guys have understood it. Yes. Yes, cool. So guys, I'm going to understand. So now we are wrapping up the session for today. We are going to take question. But before you guys could leave, there are two announcements. One is, as I've already told you, that we are going to start another cohort very soon, maybe in a month or two, which is going to be about Analytics 101. Okay. And there we are going to give you a free seat if you go ahead and share whatever you learn on LinkedIn and tag us, tag me, and also tag HelloPM. So that is one thing that I have an announcement. So whenever we are having these sessions, if you go ahead and share whatever you have learned in today's session, that is going to be helpful for other also, and that is also going to help us promote ourselves. So please go ahead and do it. That could be one thing that you can do for the cohort, for the free learning that you are getting. That is one thing. And second, which is more important than this one, is the feedback. As I have told you, if you can give something to a product manager, that is the honest feedback. Okay, so I have shared the feedback link in the chat section. Please go ahead and share your feedback over there. It is just going to take you 1 minute or 2 minutes. Please make sure that you do not leave this call. Can you do not leave this call before sharing the feedback? Okay, in the meanwhile, I am going to go ahead and yeah, so this is also known as nice marketing strategy. Yeah, this is known as the product led growth, where I'm using the, just wait a minute, I'm going to send you the link. Just wait a minute. Yes, so I have shared the link. Please go ahead and share the feedback. I hope everyone has got the link. Just give me a minute, guys, before I could go ahead. Yeah, so yeah, Meena, I have gone ahead and added one question, because in one of my sessions, when we do this cohort-based session, someone has also pointed this out. So I always include this kind of question in my feedback, which is whether I am going too fast or too slow. So you are going to find that question. Okay, so yes, so I had some unanswered question. Let me check through them. Can you explain backend again? Okay, so let me tell you. Okay, so as we have understood that, just give me a minute. Yes, so what is a backend? Okay, so we have understood that there is a client who is going to request something from the backend. Backend is the code that resides on the server. Okay, the server, which is an isolated place where all your business logic is going to be. Okay, so this is the client, this is the DNS, this is the server. The server should be able to understand the request. Server should be able to create a response. Server should be able to send the response. This all responsibility is with the backend. Okay, so this is known as the backend. In the very simple language, there are different kind of languages that are used in order to instruct the computer, instruct the server as in what it needs to do. Okay, these kind of languages are known as backend languages, which is most of the time the programming languages are backend languages. Just if you leave JavaScript, which is both like the client end language and also a backend language, Java, Ruby, Scala, Go, These are the languages which are there. Someone has also asked me a question that how does it differs when we are using an app? Okay, so for an app, there are custom solutions. Okay, there is not one solution which fits every app. Okay, so there are custom solutions. Okay, so although app can understand HTML as well, if your developer has programmed in such a way, but you can go ahead. Yeah, but you can go ahead and custom program your app. So an app can understand XML, it can understand JSON. Matlab, I'm going to explain you what XML and JSON in the coming sessions, but you just have to understand that when you create an app, everything is in your control. Okay, so you can decide what your client can render, what your client or your app can choose to receive, can your client can go ahead and what it can send. So when we talk about app, everything is customizable. Okay, it can understand HTML, it can understand XML, it can understand JSON, it can understand so many things. Okay, but talking about what is the language that we use in order to develop an app, so there are two approaches through which you can use an app. You can create an app. One is the hybrid approach, where you create a mobile website and you convert it into an app. Very like these days this approach is not being followed. Other approach is to use a native language such as React Native, or maybe more native would be Java, or maybe Kotlin, or maybe Objective-C, which is, or maybe Swift, which is used in iOS. So app is a different world altogether. In practice, when there is a system issue, do you have any tips to identify whether issue should be discussed with the front-end team? Yes, we are going to understand it in the second session, in the coming session, which is tomorrow, as in which team you should go after. Yeah, guys, if you have any question, if I'm not able to follow them up, please feel free to add them in the chat. Whatever I've told you, please make sure that you are reading about it on the internet also. That is going to increase your understanding. Yeah. Pratham, I have your question. I have read that question. I'm just not getting time to reply to it, but I'll make sure that I'm going to give you that reply maybe within a week, because I'm collecting the responses from people who have made some kind of portfolios. I have a couple of with me, but I'm going to make sure that. Yeah. Also, guys, if you are going to find some interesting articles, please send them to us. Okay, you have our email ID. Okay, I'm also going to create a forum where you guys can interact. So please share the resources. This is going to be a community learning. If I am going to miss out on some resources, some kind of analogy, please feel free to suggest them. That is going to help the whole community. Cool. Thank you, everyone. I think we have 100 and we have 58 responses. Just guys, please. Yeah, Narayana has a question that I have talked about HTML, CSS, JSX for our front end. What about React and Angular? So React and Angular are nothing but are frameworks, but are just ways in which you can simplify your development. Okay, so these technologies, when you use them, they are also, their end result are also going to be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. They are just simpler ways or a more better mechanism to code. So it is very difficult to, if you want to create a scaled website where there are so many UI components, it is very difficult to write vanilla JavaScript. That is why people are using friendlier solutions such as React. But in the end, React is also JavaScript at the backend. The foundation of React is also JavaScript. React is also written in JavaScript. React is just a framework. Angular is just a framework which uses JavaScript to create these kind of experiences for you. Yeah, Sandeep, right now we have planned to use Slack, but due to some limitations, we have not used to do it, because maybe after a week or two, I think it is, if we have ended this session, it is going to get a goose town. I only want to make sure that people who are genuinely interested are going to become a part of internal communities. So maybe after the end of this whole cohort, if we see people are going to, if there is like good enough attendance, we are going to create a Slack which can be used for interaction after the cohort. Till now, if you guys have any question, you can reach out to us on info. Shubham Kumar, will there be a session on AI and ML2? No, there is not going to be a session that we have planned. Maybe we can plan if we get enough requests, but right now we have not planned that. Yes, one book recommendation that I have right now is Swipe to Unlock. Very good book. And CS50. I do not think you are going to need any kind of reading materials after doing CS50. CS50 is very important. Okay, just go ahead. Maybe you cannot complete it right now. after you end this cohort, please go ahead and do CS50. Yes, correct. If you guys have gone ahead and filled the feedback form, you can leave. I'm going to mail you like the link for tomorrow's session is also going to be the same. Okay, so I'm going to, so if there is a confusion, I'm also going to send you a playlist for CS50. Cool. Thank you guys. You can leave. Good night, good morning, good evening, whatever is there into your time zone. Please. Yeah, so as we have not planned Analytics 101, we have planned the curriculum, we have planned how the sessions are going to be, but we have not planned about the timing right now. Yeah, Kinjal, you can get everyone is going to get the recording of every session. We are going to make it public very soon. Yeah, just understand that we are juggling between like full-time role and also so many things. So it takes a bit of time. Cool. Thank you guys. Thank you. We are going to see. Please share the link for the book as well. Yeah, guys, please make sure that you're not sharing the PDF links and all. That is not at all advisable. Please go ahead. I think that's a cheap book, $2, $3 it is going to cost you. Go ahead and buy it on Kindle, read it on your mobile. Bye. Good night. Thank you. We'll see each other tomorrow. Bye. Thank you. Good night. Yeah, don't forget to share it on LinkedIn. Bye. Thank you, Shubhamay. Thank you. Thank you, bye. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I'm going to stop the session now, and we are going to see each other tomorrow at the same time. Bye. Thank you. Have a nice time. Thanks a lot for coming. Thanks a lot for your contribution of time. Thanks a lot for your feedback. I could only see maybe 81 people right now who have submitted the feedback. Thank you, Firbi. Thank you. Bye. Take care.